All right, guys, welcome to the channel. Got a really good one for you today. My top tips and tricks for using Evoto AI. This is going to be for both beginners, but it's going to benefit people who have been using Evoto AI because you're going to be more familiar with the interface. These are not real basic stuff. This is stuff that's maybe you didn't notice from using the program just in general every day today use. Okay, so number one tip, and I saw a huge creator talking about Evoto in a video, and they said, why is there not at the top of some of these panels a find or a search at the very top? Well, there is. It's just not located at the top of each one of these panels. It's real easy to get lost because you have so many options in here. All you have to do, Windows Control F as in Francis, or Command F on Mac, and it brings up magically a search bar. It doesn't matter where you are in this program. Anytime you want, just hit Control F or Command F, okay? And you can see all the things that I search for that I use quite a lot. Hair, catch lights. So if I want to go to hair, for example, I'm going to type in hair, and you can see it's going to bring it up. And over here, you see it highlighted. If you weren't looking, there it is. And maybe I want to find stray hairs, right? Something specific. So I want to do stray hairs removal. Look at this. It gives me a search, and right there, it goes right to it. Did you see it? Stray hairs removal. And she doesn't really have any stray hairs. Probably a terrible example. This was my most recent project, but there it is. So if I'm looking for example tattoos, because I can't remember where it is in the panel, here it is, body refinement tattoos, and boom, down at the bottom. I wish it would kind of bring it up to the top every time, but it's way down here at the bottom on this panel. It found it for me though. Okay, yeah, so that is my top tip. Anything you're looking for. Now, it's not just the panels over here. Go to the library at the top here. What if I have, look, I have 131 projects. What if I want to search for the shoot with Felicia, okay, and I can't remember where it is? I can just hit Felicia, and right here, oh, this is where I was working on de-wrinkle with the dress, okay? So I did a little project there. What if I want to find Tatiana's project, right? You can see I have different, here's a Tatiana holidays, okay? It's going to go right there to it. So it doesn't just work for, say, in the edit panel, but in the library panel as well. There is your first tip. All right, big trick of the day, and I hope you like this one. Let's go to the portrait retouching here, and we're in the freckles and acne, and we have the option to turn off these features by holding down the eyeball one by one, to where we can turn off just the blemish removal. And let me zoom in to where you can see that. So there it's off, and then I can toggle it and turn it back on. So there's a before and after just for that one feature. But I've done some hair cleanup on this one and some dodge and burn, and I need a global button, not just an eyeball for the one feature. I need a global button for all the retouching effects to turn on and off at one time. We don't have that, but we do. The problem is, if I do a before and after by hitting the space bar, or we get the color adjustments happen as well. And I had a light misfire on this one. This is an extreme example, but it's going to include those color adjustment exposure edits as well, and it's distracting because it's hard to see the portrait edits when you're doing that global before and after, and so it's doing that with me, right? So what you can do is go to the color adjustments panel and toggle this real-time adjustments on and off, and it's just going to turn off all of the portrait retouching at one time without impacting the exposure. So you can see I turned it to on, and my hair adjustments and my freckles and acne, you can see those are the two adjustments. Now when I toggle it the other way, that's when it turns them back on. But it doesn't do this when you hit the space bar, the before and after with the color adjustments as well. So it excludes those color adjustments. Not really what this feature is for, but this button is your global on and off for your portrait retouching adjustments, okay? All right, so you guys still with me? I've got some big tips coming up. Here's one. I'm going to go back to my library. I'm going to do a Control F, and I'm going to search for Anastasia. There she is. And it's going to take me right to the Anastasia folder, right? Here's another big one, and you need to understand when you're in the library view, the difference between the survey view, which is what I'm in now, the loop view, which was what I'm in most of the time. You get all of these filters down here, right? And then you have the grid view. The grid view is very powerful, and I will give you an example right now. You can get, if you look at the info over here, you've got metadata. So I can see basic information of the name of the file, the dimensions, and the date, the capture date that it was taken. But what I want to do is be able to add my copyright info. So if I go over to copyright, you can see there's nothing in there, right? So, and you have to do this now from the grid view, okay? It doesn't work from any of these other views, okay? Now, if I want to select all of them, Control A, and it says multiple values, I'm going to put in Gregory K. Photo, LLC. I'm going to hit Enter, and it's going to bark at me and tell me, "Are you sure you want to do this?" I'm going to say yes, and it's going to add my copyright info to every image in the set. Okay, big tip right there. Now, what I would like to see, and I've been looking at the help to see where I could find it, I would like to see this an import preset, so that when I import any photo, you could put this Evoto in the settings if you want to. Up here, Evoto settings at the top left. Put them in here somewhere to where I have an import preset, or multiple import presets, right, to where I can automatically apply my copyright information, usage rights terms, URL, anything that I want to automatically when I import the images. That is an enhancement request Evoto. Maybe there's a way to do it. I haven't found it. If you guys know, put a comment down below. Okay, so that would be nice. And I would like to be able to turn that on or off, because if I'm a retoucher, maybe I don't want to touch people's metadata or the EXIF information in the photos. I don't want to touch that, right? I don't want to put my stuff in there. I want to keep their stuff if I'm retouching someone else's work, right? So that's an example of where I'd want to turn it off, okay? All right, on to the next tip. Let's hit some settings, right? Evoto settings. Go up to the top left in the menu, hit Evoto, and go to settings. Most of these you want to leave on default on whatever they're set to, but there's some things that you might not be aware of, okay? This is one right here, synced preview position and scale settings. So every time I go through a photo and I'm just iterating through my photos, they're always going to fit and be centered on the canvas. But what if I had zoomed in and I want to go through a set of photos and I wanted to retain that zoom as I go from photo to photo? Where you're going to want to scale, choose one of these options so that your default is to scale the next image relative to the scale that I'm at in this one. So if I'm zoomed in 50% and I do that all the time, or for the entire project, maybe that's the setting that I want, so that I go to the next image, I don't keep having to rescale it every time I go to them. I usually keep it on fit centered on canvas, but that could be something that helps you for your use case, all right, whatever you're doing, just something to be aware of. Okay, also in the preview panel here, very important, you have a preview size, okay? I've got mine, the default is 3000. I've got mine set to 4000. You may have it set to 1024 or something like that. This is related to the quality of the image that you're seeing in the preview when you're editing them. So if you're getting like, you're noticing that the image is not 100% quality, this is the quality that you're getting inside of Evoto. Now, when you export out, you're going to get full quality, or depending on what your export settings are, right? So this is something very important to be aware of. Full size preview and real-time color adjustments. I've got that turned on. If you don't have that turned on, maybe you want to turn that on, okay? All right, let's go back to the library, and I'm down here in the loop view. That's these three down here. You have survey view, loop view, and grid view. Well, what was not apparent to me immediately was, how do I say I want to set 3 of these to the color red? I'm going to hold down the control key and select 3 shots down here at the bottom. And maybe I want to set them all to 5-star. Well, I hit 5 over here and only set it on one of them. Or I hit this right here and I can set it to red, but it only set it on one of them. What's going on? Why isn't it not doing it to all 3? Well, you need to be in the grid view to do that. Okay, so come over here to the grid view. And now I have all 3 of these up here. And I'm going to select this one and these 3 here. And I'm going to set the color label to, let's set them to yellow. And you can see that it set them all 3 to yellow. And I'm going to set this to 5 stars. It set them all 3 to 5 stars. So I can select all of them. I can go through and select multiples by holding down the control key or the shift key. And then I can assign labels, colors, stars, flags to multiple shots at one time. Okay, on to the next one. All right, so let's go back to the library view, and just a couple basic things that maybe was not apparent to you is go up if you look up at the top, you'll have projects, right? And you also have collections. And I had somebody say, well, I can't go to Evoto because I use collections in Lightroom. Well, Evoto now has collections, and anytime you're, say, down here, you could select multiple shots, right, like this, and you can right click and you can add 6 images that I have selected to an album. And what it means is collections. So you can see I have collections that I've already created ahead of time, and those are these over here in the left right here. Okay, so it tells you what they are, and you can create. I can hit the plus here and I can create a new collection. What would that be used for? Well, for me, I use it for Evoto demo shots. So when I know I'm going to make a video about Evoto and I have some sample photos, I'll add those photos to the Evoto demo shots collection, and I can just go to that collection and all my shots are there. That's just my example, right? So that's one thing. So another thing that you should be aware of is under projects. Of course, you have all, right? But you can, when you create these groups, you have ungrouped projects. I've got mine grouped under 2025. I do have a 2026, so I've created that group 2026 right here. You do create group. If I want to get ahead of myself, maybe I say 2027, right, and create that group. And then when I create a project, I can create it in that group right now. A nice feature to have that I haven't seen, I've tried it, is I want another group, maybe group them by month, right? That would be even nice, but it looks like you only get like one level of groups. So there's no multiple levels, but it would be cool if I could say, okay, 2026, May, and then put all my projects under May and there. So you can see under 2025, I've got all my projects grouped. You can see them over here. If I click on the 2025 or down on the left side, you can see them here, okay? And finally, some other little things to be aware of is you can control the size of the covers over here. On the left side, I could do large covers if I want. It helps me, sort of identify these photos, a little bit better. I could do medium covers. If I click this and show related folders, here down at the bottom, it'll say related folders, right? So Anastasia is under my X drive in the folder Anastasia, okay? So if I want to find where that project is located, maybe I'm having trouble showing it, I would choose show related folders, right? I'm going to keep my covers. I could have no covers if I want to and just have a list. It just depends on how you want to see everything. And if you want to see the entire group, like I said, you can come over here, right, and do this. So that's it for the library panel pretty much. If you're still with me, I hope you are. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, leave comments if this helped you, or give me suggestions, okay? Let's go to the fun stuff. Let's get over to the edit panel, okay? And let's go back to Anastasia, right? And we are now in the edit panel. One thing that they added recently that you might not be aware of is virtual copies. And I've been wanting this because I do have some presets coming up. They're not for release yet, but I have a lot of black and white presets, right? And sometimes I don't want to change my original color image. I want to have this one, but I want to have a black and white version also. So I can right click on this image and I can choose create virtual copy. And right next to it, it's going to create another copy of this image. So I'm going to select that and it's going to apply. See, that was the original shot before I edited it. So you can see my straight out of camera work in all its glory, right? But now I can use one of my black and white presets over here, and I can have, a black and white version of this shot. And so now I have the original color version and I have a black and white version as well to go with it in a virtual copy, okay? This is a good example, pretty good segue, this shot right here. What if I want to see if, Evoto doesn't give you an over or under exposure warning over here. That is something that I would like to see, Evoto. I need to know or have an indicator showing me in the shot. I want to see it red or whatever color I choose where it's overexposed so I can see whether I have perfect white or not. Or you may want to see other areas of the photo that are underexposed or other areas that are clipping. So we need that clipping meter, right? But I can't come over here and right click on the background here and choose white. And so you can see there that my white background, I mean, it's not perfect down here. That's fine with me. Up here, I can see that it's almost perfectly white. So if I'm trying to judge that, particularly if I'm tethering, right, I could set my background to white. If you prefer a different color background for editing, just for your eyes and the adjustment of your eyes, maybe I want a dark gray background. Maybe I want a black background while I'm editing, or medium gray. So there you go. But I would like to see a clipping level meter in Evoto, okay? All right, I'm going to show you a trick now, and this is a portrait retouching trick. So let's go back out to the library, and I'm going to go back down to this collection here. We talked about that earlier, to some Evoto demo shots that I use to demo some of these features. We'll go to Berger here, and this is going to be a portrait retouching trick. And I always tell people that I don't like to pump up my retouching edits all the way to 100, meaning like blemish removal. I usually like to keep it around in the 30s, because when you start pumping everything up, the blemish removal, and then you start adding these effects on, you get an unnatural look, like it looks edited, right? We've got some skin challenges here, right? And I've got it at 30, so I really want to be able to fix this, and in order to do that, I got to pump this up to 100 though. And I'll pump the freckles up to 100. You can see, although they're not freckles, and when she has some scarring like that and some challenges there, pumping up the freckles will help. Not really a trick, just a tip there, but there's more. So I've got all these pumped up to 100, and I have, in my mind, an edited look. Now, the retoucher in me is like, oh, that made everything a lot easier, but it's a little bit smooth from my taste. It looks edited, right? So maybe, she didn't have issues. If we bring this stuff, we'll use the eyeball here, right, to turn these features off. So when you turn them off, you can see there's the original. So she doesn't really have issues on the chin or the forehead or the nose or the other side of the cheek. We're just seeing them on the near side of the cheek right there. So let's pump everything up to 100 just for this area right here. And let's use a mask to mask out everything else. Okay. So that's going to be this little pencil right here. That's manual tuning, right? So let's use an erase mask, right? And let's erase this effect from everywhere except for the problem area, right? And I may need to come back and fine tune it, but let's do that. For now, right now, I might want to go to the plus. See, the minus up there is erase, the plus is add. So use the left and right bracket to resize the tool, right? So maybe I just want that to be the affected area. I'm going to hit minus, and I'm going to subtract this area up here. And so really that's the problem area right there, and I'm going to hit OK. So now the only place that's really been super smoothed out is just right here on the cheek. I left the forehead, the nose, the chin, and the other side alone. You can see in this area, there's still some little bit of problems there, but for the most part, just the only part that I smoothed out a lot was just right there on the cheek, okay? And if we go back to the masking, you can see this is the only portion here that we're actually smoothing out. Okay, so that's a little trick where you want to do targeted areas, right, with your retouching, but you don't want to affect the entire face. Okay, and this is useful as well if you want to pump these tools up to 100, but maybe she has like a mole, like see this mole up here, it's not going to remove that one mole, right? You could use a mask to mask out that one mole, just like we did this part of the cheek, right? So if you have, I had one that she had like a nose ring, and it was doing something crazy to the nose ring, right? When we pumped everything up, and we just used a subtraction mask and this little manual tuning tool right here to mask that one little portion out where, like here, it'd be a mole, or she had like a nose ring or something like that. So that's where that's useful. All right, on to the next one. All right, so this one is, let's go back to Anastasia. This one is, it's a tip, but it's kind of a trick. I was just working on the shot with Anna, and I thought her cheeks were a little bit too rosy, right? Now there's a rosy cheeks with Control F, right? There's a rosy skin tone, rosy complexion setting, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm really looking for in the skin retouching, and I can't remember what it's called now, so the find is not going to help you if you can't remember what you're looking for, right? But it's in the skin retouching. It's unify, it's face complexion, Control F, unify face complexion. So there it is. It'll take you, if I click that, watch the panel on the right side, Boom, down at the bottom, it took me right to it. Look at the rosiness of the skin tones kind of on her nose and her cheeks. It was intentional with her makeup, right? Because she's got the same color on the eyeshadow as well. She was trying to blend that all together, but for me, it's a little bit too much on the nose and the cheeks. So I can use this Unify face complexion, bring that over. Let's just bring it over about halfway, and you can see it kind of tones that down. I don't want to get rid of all that rosiness, but it just toned it down a little bit. If I hit the little eyeball, turn it off, see there's the before and there's the after. So that's a little trick. It's sort of a tip, sort of a trick, right? All right, so while we're talking about makeup, let me go back to my library, right? I want to look for a shot of Model Mercy, so I'm going to hit Control F, and I'm just going to search for Mercy because I'm in the library panel, and there's a studio shoot, and it's going to take me right to that studio shoot. And I want to find a shot. I want to find the shot that I did where I actually added makeup, and this is a tip. That I think this is really cool. And see, there's the before. A little bit rough with the hair on the edges, and we need a little bit of skin retouching, right? And let's give it a second to show you the edit. And boom, there's the edit. Okay, looks a lot better compared to the before. There's the before, cleaned up the hair, did a little bit of skin retouching, dodge and burn type of thing, just to even it out. But you can see that it's not too much, right? We've got, it's a tasteful edit. But I was just thinking, maybe we go back to the edit panel and let's do our Control F again, right? And let's do makeup, okay? And maybe she's got this blue female makeup is what comes up. It came down here on the right side, right? And maybe we come down here under the makeup panel and, they have some preset looks in here, but I want to do like eyeshadow maybe. And I want to make this blue, this sort of greenish blue pop, right? So let's go down here to this one right here. And you have these options to pick. You see that? So I'm going to set them out to 100 because I really want this to pop, right? So we've got that one. Now we've got just the blue makeup, and I got the little eyeball over here. So I'm going to turn it off. There's before and there's after, right? So looking at, tying in some of the fashion along with the makeup, right? So it's just something that I did on one of the shots. We could come over here and go with a little bit of pink and blue, right, if we wanted to. But I think I really liked this blue one. It gave her a little bit of makeup there. So that's something that I really liked. And if I wanted to take it a little bit further, I could go to like eyeliner, and I could, give her something, like this here. And now they've stacked them, right? I've stacked these two features together. So I've got the blue and I've got this, I'm not sure what it is, a wingtip or whatever they call them, right? But that looks really cool. So, we went from, there's the before and there's the after. Now going back to my trick that I told you guys earlier, it's a little distracting when you get the exposure adjustments mixed in with your before and after. So I just want to see the retouching adjustments with that exposure changing. So I'm going to hit this real-time color adjustments. Now we just have the global after and before of the retouching, right? By toggling that button. And that's without, if I hit the space button, the global before. See the difference that makes? It's easier to see what I did with the retouching. All right, so let's get on with some more editing tips. Let's look at this shot of Justine, and I can see some issues here already where I did some stuff to the edges, and you can see that down here it's not quite perfect. So let's go over to the edit panel. Let's go to the background. So let's see what it looked like before the edit. So we had, so it's not a solid backdrop, but on the distractions removal, it will clean up a backdrop for you mostly. It's sort of, especially if the backdrop it kind of has a solid color around the edge. If it doesn't, if there's flowers all the way to the edge, don't expect miracles, okay? It's really for solid colors. But you can see down here on the edges, there's a little bit of weirdism. It wasn't quite perfect, right? Well, for a long time, I didn't notice these tools up here. You have the liquefy tool and the healing tool, right? So if you're familiar with those tools in Photoshop, we have them in Evoto. Never really paid attention to them for a long time, right? I'm an avid Photoshop user. I know how to, I'm pretty good at it, and I've got a lot of tutorials at it, but I'm rarely in Photoshop anymore now that Evoto has come along. So let's do, you can see under this healing tool now, we have tools that are in Photoshop: spot healing brush, the patch tool, and the clone stamp tool. So let me try the clone stamp tool, right? And I'm going to keep the hardness at 0. Let's see what that size is. It's pretty small. You can use the right bracket key to make this thing a little bit larger, maybe about like that. And hold down the Option or the Alt key, and I'm going to get a target right maybe here. And I'm going to click, and that's going to load up a sample. Can you see it as I move it around? It's got that sample of that spot loaded in there. And then I'm going to come over here, right? And I'm just going to click a few times, and I'm going to move up and click a few times. So it looks better, right? Maybe I'll make it a little smaller. It's bringing in some of these flowers from over here. So you can just keep clicking around, right? And just kind of smooth it out. I'm using a mouse, so it's, I'm used to using a pen, but we fixed that spot pretty much, right? I mean, it doesn't look like it did before, and we can hit OK. So you have these tools, right? Maybe I just try a healing tool for this little spot over here, and just see what it'll do. I can't guarantee it's going to look perfect, but sometimes it will give me something, and I'll get lucky. See that? I just clicked on it a few times, and that looks better than it did. And we can zoom in, and maybe I make this a little bit smaller using the left bracket key that's next to the P key, and I fix that right there. And clicking it a few times, maybe I'll get lucky. There we go. And I'm going to hit OK, and we'll zoom back out, right? And I fix the edges. So no more having to go into Photoshop to do that. Okay, so the edges are fixed. There you go. So I didn't even notice these tools up here for probably the first 6 months that I used this program, right? I was just using the blemish removal and the skin retouching and all that. So very useful. Right now, Liquify tool works just like it does in Photoshop. I used to use this to smooth out closing edges. Now we have that now in Evoto, right? Where I would come in, and if I had something popping out in the clothing, like this here, I could come in with the Liquify. I could come in here and just kind of pop it out, right? If I didn't like that little spot, and then kind of just make these adjustments, even out this stuff, right? If I want to, I could make it a little bit larger too if I want to have more of an impact there. But I could go fix a little intricate things like that with the clothing, because I'm very picky about that. So that's one way to do it. Also, I don't recommend this. I mean, she's perfect the way she is, but if you were looking to, depending on who your client is, sometimes they want you to go, well, can you trim the waist for me a little bit? You can do that a little bit. See that? If I want to bring the waist in just a little bit there. And now she's got to trim her waist. Of course, we have tools that do that. I'm just showing you how the Liquify works. If you want to hit specific spots, you have, the retouching tools that will make the waist thinner and things like that way down here on in the full body reshape. Okay, I'm just talking about this Liquify. If those don't get what you need, you could go in and further refine things. On to the next one. All right, here's another simple tip. Did you guys know that once you have a shot selected, like I have one down here at the bottom, I can just do a Control or Command C and copy the effect. Maybe I just want to copy the portrait retouching. Maybe I want to copy the color adjustments, just those two, or any combination of other effects. I can save it, and then I can go to this other one over here. This is a virtual copy I did earlier, and I can hit Control or Command V, and it's going to paste what I had in the shot that I just copied from. And boom, there you go. I've got the same edit as I had in the shot that I copied, right? Control C, Control V, right? Basic little tip. Maybe you hadn't discovered it yet. Maybe you have. Maybe it wasn't obvious to you, but I use that all the time when I'm just trying to jump around and I want to paste just certain things in, or copy certain things and paste certain things. Okay, so another tip for you there. On to the next one. Let's grab, this is one of my favorite shots to do because it just shows you possibilities. All right, let's talk about presets. I'm going to go over to the edit section. And did you know that you have type color presets? Can you see it here where it says color? This is one of my basic presets. I'll have my presets available pretty soon. Look at this next one is just a skin retouch, but it's a portrait retouching only preset. So I can apply a color adjust preset, which all it's doing is stuff in this color adjustments panel. And it just brought up the highlights and the shadows. It's just a real basic. It'll bring the contrast up a little bit, the blacks down a little bit, the vibrance up to 20. It's a real basic settings that I use on all my shots, right? And if it's not enough, maybe I underexpose just a little bit, I can come up here and maybe bring the brightness up, which if you didn't know, we didn't have this in Lightroom, or still don't, I don't think. I haven't been in Lightroom in a while, in a minute. But brightness will bring up the midtones versus the highlights and the shadows. It'll leave those alone and bring up those midtones. So we're in the ballpark now, right? That's just the color adjust only. Now I can stack another preset on top of that that is just a portrait preset, right? And that's this one. So if I want to do some retouching on the skin, right, it's going to do that. I might have zoomed in too much. I brought these all up to 100. I usually don't do that, but this is sort of a full-length portrait. Can't really tell as much. Just to show you the example that we can stack these presets, I've got a color adjust and a portrait preset, and we've used two of them, and they don't override each other, okay? Where they would override each other is if you used a combination preset. How do we create those, right? You can see I have them grouped under my B&W presets and my basic presets. Well, if I come down here to this save preset, this is where your options are. So you can see here's the group, and I've created, you can create a new group, but I've got these here, my own groups, right? And then I've set it as type combination. That means it's any combination number of these panels over here on the right, whether it's AI, color, portrait, background, or whatever. It's a combination of them. So if I apply this onto another shot, it's going to overwrite if those settings already exist on that shot, okay? If I just want to make it a portrait retouch, it's just going to select that one, right? If I want to make it a color only, it will just select the color adjustments. And that's how I get under these basic presets a color preset or a portrait preset only. So that is how you create your own presets, and then I can use these independently of each other and they don't override each other. Okay, does that make sense? If I had a combination, that might have a portrait and a color inside of it, and if I hit that one, that's going to override those settings. It allows me to use one preset to do both, but sometimes I just want to do the color, and sometimes I just want to do the retouch, and I want to do it my way in my preset, and so that's what I use those for. Makes sense? All right, on to the next one. What are some other things as far as the library that you might not have noticed or used? And there's these filters down here, okay? Now we're familiar with the color filters and the star filters, but these are kind of specific to Evoto. One of them is the export status, right? If we want to know how many we have exported or haven't, useful if you want to know if you've already exported them and used a credit or whatever, or if you haven't, I've got unexported, right? Here's one shot, black and white preset that I added to it. I never exported this one, right? So I know this by using this filter, okay? To turn off the filter, hit the little X next to the filter icon down here, okay? So, you know, that turns off all filters. So that's one. If I'm doing a file name is useful, right? If I want to know, here's one that you guys that are Pixieset users maybe. If you're not a Pixieset user, I'll be real fast. But in Pixieset, customer favorites, right? So we can go into favorite activity and customers can tell me, like I can see that Tatiana had 23 favorites. And if I want to copy the names of all those files, right, I can do that just by coming up to these little three dots and doing a Lightroom copy list. Well, it doesn't have to be for Lightroom, right? It's just a list, a comma delimited list of all the files that she liked in the gallery, right? So now I can come back to Evoto and I can use this file name filter right here, contains, and I can put the cursor in the contains field and just do a Control or Command V. It's going to paste that list in there, and look at that. Down here, we got those 23 photos that she picked. Didn't know you could do that, did you? So now I could go into the grid view, right, if I want to. And from the grid view, this is where you have to assign flags and colors and sync them across all your shots, right? It looks like I did some of them already, but I'm going to do a Control-A to select all, and I'm going to set them all to, let's set them all to purple. I haven't used that before, right? So now I know that all of the shots that my client liked are in purple. I can go back to the loop view, and now if I lose this, I could keep this here, but if I restart Evoto, this set is not going to be, these aren't going to be in here anymore, right? So I would lose this find set, so to speak. So let's turn the filters off, and you go, oh my God, I lost all the ones that she liked. Well, no, I didn't. I can come over here and I can filter by purple, and there they all are, okay? So these filtering tools are very useful. I can filter A7R5, the lens that I used. If I have a whole bunch of photos and I want to, I use prime lenses or zoom lenses, I can find them all by doing that format. All these things, whether they've been exported, whether they've been edited or not. So I know I have 20 photos in here that I didn't edit. So these actually here were never edited. Okay. So there you go. There were photos that I guess I didn't like these, probably because it was too dark or she wasn't looking at the camera or wasn't ready. Okay. Oh, and here's a tip. If you don't see these filters up here, you go in here and you don't see them at all, make sure you see this down here. I clicked on the little filter icon. Did you see them disappear? You have a few things over here, but they're gone, right? I'm in the library view. Where's all my filters? They're gone. Well, if you click on the little filter icon, they will reappear, okay? So if you're missing your filters over here, I got stuck on that one day. I was like, where's my filters? They were just gone, right? So that is a little tip, huge tip right there if you're missing stuff. All right, final tips of the day. We're back to Anastasia. If you guys are still here, by the way, I appreciate you hanging in there. Leave a comment. If you have a comment, give it a like. It really helps the video to get seen. And hopefully other people will actually notice it out there in the world of YouTube. Okay, so I really appreciate you guys watching. So we're back with Anastasia. Let's do an export, right? And let's say I want to export, I don't know, I'm just going to select a set of images here, right? And we all know we can come up here to export, right? And I'm just going to do custom export. Did you know that you can export multiple file types, right? What if I want to export a JPEG and I want to export a TIFF A3, right? Because I want to keep all that information in it. I can do that. And it's going to give me on the export multiple files. It's going to give me a JPEG and a TIFF. Okay. So it tells me I've got 10 images selected, but see 10 times 2, it's going to tell me I've got 20 exported images because I've got 2 different file types selected. Isn't that cool? Now, some other things that maybe you didn't realize because they're all the way down here at the bottom is this watermark. I can add a watermark, right? And I can turn that on here, and you can see you got to have a watermark file like a ping image or something that has just your logo or whatever over it. And I can't even see it on here. You can barely see it. It's real light. Now you can bring the opacity up. Let's bring that. There it is. So opacity, I don't know how to say it, guys, but yeah, so there it is. So maybe I want to have a watermark over this. Okay. And I can set the vertical or horizontal where I want it to appear on the image. Okay. Maybe I want it right here, or maybe I want to put it down in the corner or whatever. I can rotate it if I want to, all those things. So in case you didn't know, you have watermarks. That's really it in the export. The rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. Just pay attention to when you're exporting the path that you're exporting to. If you can't remember where you exported to, you can always go to the export panel and you can click on this little folder here and it will tell you the file location where you exported the file to. Okay, that is it for all my tips and tricks today. If you guys have a tip or trick, put it in the comments. Would love to see them. Appreciate you hanging in there, especially if you're still watching at this point. Love you. Again, keep watching. Give it a like, give it a subscribe, and you guys have a good one.